Welcome to the Filipino American Women Project, a podcast show that shares stories and life lessons told by individuals living or have lived in America that are of Filipino descent and identify as female. I'm your host, Jenn Amos, a fellow Filipino American woman, and I'm excited for you to join us. Let's get started. All right. Hi, everyone. Jenn Amos here with the Filipino American Women Project. And as always, I have my incredible co-host with me, Nani Dominguez. Nani, welcome back to the show.
What's up, everyone?
Yeah. And as we are all, in light of the coronavirus, we are still podcasting because we can do it virtually and we have no choice anyway, even if we wanted to be in person. So here we are. And I know it's interesting times for so many of us. Like I personally had a really heavy day today. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who have going through similar things. And so hopefully this episode will bring some inspiration in your life or bring you a sense of hope or even keep you distracted from what you're currently going through right now with the coronavirus. But just know that you're not alone. And if you are an extrovert and you cannot stand being at home, you can reach out to us on Instagram, the Filipino American Woman, and just chat with us. If you're lonely, reach out to us. We can use the company too. I can use the company, even though I'm an introvert. So it would be great to hear from you. And, just know that we're all going through this experience together. All right. With that said, I'm really excited because every time we get to do another show, it means that we get to bring on another incredible Filipina in our community. So I want to introduce you all to Jenn Estacio. Jenn, or on this show, we're going to call her Jenn E because I'm Jenn A. So we don't confuse the Jenns. Jenn Estacio is rediscovering herself now that she's a mom. She currently works full-time while learning how to run a small business called Flipp Family on the side. She's learning that being a mom doesn't mean that you can't go after your dreams and that being a mom has made her an even more powerful Filipina. Jenn E., welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, it's so great to have you. I'm going to call you Jenn because when I call you Jenn, like people know that you're the other Jenn and, whatever. So I'm just going to, Nani, you can call Jenn E. And then everyone knows
I got it. Jenn E and Jenn A.
Yeah, just so everyone knows. Okay, so Jenn, why don't you share, how did you hear about the Filipino American Women Project? And more importantly, what inspired you to jump on our show today to share your story?
Yeah, so when I started Flipp Family back in September of last year, I've just did some Instagram stalking and, found a lot of Filipino inspired Instagram handles. And that's how I came about for the Filipino American Women Project. And I've just been following you ever since. And I wanted to share my story just because I can relate to a lot of Filipino American women and moms, especially that are working full time. And I kind of want to share my story that working moms are not alone.
Mm-hmm. I love it. That is incredible. I love that you found us on Instagram. That is essentially our number one marketing tool right now. And as the year progresses, we plan on expanding more. But I find even for myself that I tend to find the most community on Instagram. So really cool that you found us in that way.
Yeah, and I find that even for me, same thing. I found that the community on Instagram is just so supportive and, always willing to help or share, my events or, even through DM. Like I'm talking to all these different people across the world. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When you said that you started following our show and you resonated with a lot of the stories, what part of the show, or what's the common theme that you felt like you could relate to?
I think just hearing other Pinays talk about their story and where they started and where they are now and kind of even their childhood, it relates so much to me. I mean, first generation Filipino American, especially a lot of people that you interview, it resonates with me and it made me think even more. I'm like, oh, wow. I relate to so many people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy because I feel like A lot of people we've interviewed on our show are trailblazers in their industries and what they're doing. And we feel like we're alone, or we feel like we have to, be the trailblazer, the trendsetter. And as we collect more of these stories, we start to find that a lot of us are doing similar things and having the same experiences. So it's really cool to come together in this way and unite in this way and be like, I'm not alone in this. And this just gives me more conviction to be a trailblazer, to keep putting myself out there and to keep showing up as I am. So really cool stuff. So Jenn, with the Filipino American Women Project, we identify the Filipino American women as individuals who live or have lived in America that are of Filipino descent and identify as female or pronouns she, her. So Jenn, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your family background and why you identify as a Filipino American woman.
Yeah, so I grew up in Buena Park, which is in Orange County here in California. And growing up, both my parents were full-time working parents, and my grandparents are the ones that actually watched me, my sister, and my cousins at the time. And my mom's a nurse, and my dad was a mechanic, and he actually retired at a very early age. So at some point, he became a stay-at-home dad, which I feel like you never see. You always see a stay-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad was pretty much the cook, the caregiver, the driver, the handyman. Anything you tell him to do, he'll do it. That was my dad. And growing up, he was always there, especially around my high school years. He was the mom at home.
Mm-hmm.
And and I identify myself as a first generation Filipino American. I mean, I'm the oldest, and I have one younger sister, and we were both born here in America. And I never really got to learn about our Filipino culture until college.
Mm.
Like growing up, my parents would talk to me in Tagalog. I understand it, but then I don't speak it. And I feel like my generation can relate to that. Like my husband, we both talk, or we both understand Tagalog, but we never speak it. And now that my two kids, I want to encourage them to learn as much Filipino as possible. So I try to teach them tidbits of what I know here and there. And he's like my oldest son, he's almost 3. He repeats what I say. So I try to encourage culture into him as much as possible, because I never really got into it till college. I mean, I was in the Filipino club. I was in the Filipino sorority. Like I was gung-ho Filipino in college.
Yes.
And I'm looking back at it now, like I think I've always instilled culture in myself. And now that I'm older, like I don't care what people say of like, you're too Filipino, especially now that I created like this little community for families that trying to instill culture for them. It just, for me, to show my kids that like need to learn where you came from. And then also, if I'm gone, you can carry on everything that I taught you, which is something I wish I did growing up. Like I mentioned earlier, my dad is the cook. He's Pampangan, so they're known to cook, and he is like one of the best cooks like ever. Like I don't think he'll judge Filipino food. He's like, I can make that so much better. He'll taste him like, okay, I can make it so much better, and he does. And I wish I learned how to cook from him. Mm-hmm. And I didn't learn to cook or got interested in cooking till I moved out and lived on my own. And that's when I started cooking more and got into Filipino food and, being a foodie and cook all these things and take pictures of it. I didn't get the chance to grow up and learn how to cook from him. And I know everyone says they're like Filipinos don't write down the recipes and they only cook by taste. So I'm trying to learn more from my parents of the way they cook and write things down so I can hand it down to, generations to come. Some of the things that I've been learning, especially, I think it's just like now currently trying to backtrack in time and get as much out of my parents before, they're getting older. So I want to get as much out of them now before it's too late.
Right. Oh, I hear you in agreement, Nani. Did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, and definitely feel the same way. I recently lost not really recently, but a couple years ago now, lost my grandpa, and 10 years ago lost my grandma. And I, now in this last year or so have also felt that way. Like, damn, I wish I would have taken advantage of that time with them and did things like cook with them and hear their stories and, like pull that kind of stuff out of them. So it's great that you still have your parents and that you still have the opportunity to do that. And I would say definitely take advantage of that. But at the same time, even though you didn't get a chance to learn how to cook really from your dad and you did more of that coming up, experimenting in it on your own, I think that you've done a really beautiful job of documenting it online, at least a way to like honor him, because that's clearly, where it sounds like your inspiration comes from.
Yeah. And like, I didn't know I really got into cooking till I actually left my parents' house. Like, I didn't truly, my dad would always say, like, when you have your family, when you have your own kids, you'll understand. And I didn't really understand till I'm a mom now.
You're like, right.
Oh, you are right.
It always happens that way.
Like that. Like, now I understand, like, oh yeah, this is hard. Being a parent is hard. And now that we're pretty much stuck at home, we've been already going stir crazy, and it's been like day 4 of this
I bet.
distancing.
Right. Yeah,
and I'm
I can't
still
imagine.
Full time, so we're both working. Oh, we gotta finish this, but then you have one kid like, I'm hungry. I'm like, oh my gosh, can we just send this email real quick?
Can I have 5 seconds? They're like, nope.
It's like they don't have like concept of time. It's like, no, I need it now.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, oh my gosh, in 5 minutes we can go outside. I promise. I just need to do this. And they're like, no, now. I'm like, okay.
Oh, I love it. There's a couple things about your story that really resonated with me. First of all, I just think it's incredible that your father was a stay-at-home dad. I've always been fascinated by daughter-father relationships because I lost my father when I was really young. And it sounds like you two had a really good relationship with one another. I'm curious if you've ever noticed the difference. I mean, you lived it, so maybe not so much, but if you ever noticed a difference with having a stay-at-home father versus, let's say, like a stay-at-home mom, like, did you notice any difference amongst like what you had maybe versus what your friends had if they had stay-at-home moms?
No, not really. I mean, my dad, his personality is very extrovert, so he'll talk to anybody. He'll make anybody feel comfortable. Yeah. If you were living in our neighborhood, he'll be talking to you every day. He'll be at your house.
I love it.
He sounds like my grandma.
So like everyone in our neighborhood knows him. So like for me growing up, I didn't see a difference. Like my mom, she was always the one working and hustling her way. She was at one point working 2 nursing jobs at one point, and my dad was the one just being at home, taking care of me and my sister and my grandma at the time before she passed away. Yes, it's just in his nature. He like very motherly.
That is really awesome. And just similar to you, I didn't really learn about my culture or our culture as well till I went to college. I feel like we're like college neighbors because I was in San Diego and I went to San Diego State. And I always thought that Orange County was like just so much cleaner than San Diego.
Really? Anywhere.
I don't know if that's true, but it always felt that way. Like I always felt like it was
really clean.
Yeah, really suburban, really clean, like clean, even in the like city like area, it just seemed more like clean. Like the windows of the buildings were cleaner I don't know what it is, like just for some reason it seemed like it was cleaner and everything, but very cool. And for the longest time I had assumed that a lot of people like our generation didn't learn about their culture till college as well. And the cool thing I found in this project is that everyone learns about their culture at different stages of their life. I mean, we're going to be interviewing someone who was kind of forced to learn about her culture when she became a student advisor for a Filipino organization, like after she graduated college, And I know with Nani, like she started learning about her culture just recently, like in the last year or so. Like this project has really been part of her learning about our culture, really. And so it's just really cool to hear how people sort of awaken to the Filipino culture at different stages of their life.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I have, friends that are trying to learn their culture now that they have kids. Like they want to instill Filipino culture, or, I have friends that are, half Filipino, half whatever, and they want to learn about the Filipino culture. And I think it's also this day, I don't know, people think we're cool. I don't know.
It's cool to be Filipino, y'all.
Like, especially with food, Filipino food has come a long way. I think across the nation, across the US, you see all these like Filipino chefs like being awarded James Beard Awards and, releasing cookbooks that have reached like top whatever, on different book lists. And I think that sparks interest to non-Filipinos to learn about our culture and be interested in it.
All right, Jenn Amos here, jumping into the middle of our show, as I always do, to remind you why this show is possible. So, at the end of every episode, I tend to say, if you didn't catch our guest contact info, don't worry, we'll have those in the show notes. Check them out. I worked so hard on them. You're welcome. Well, it's been brought to my attention that our show notes are not as easy to find as I thought, which is why starting summer 2020, the Filipino American Women Project is proud to be partnering with Captivate, the world's only growth-oriented podcast host. Captivate is created for independent podcasters, designed from day one to help you to focus on audience growth and the expansion of your audio influence. One way that Captivate makes our lives easier as independent podcasters is by taking the guesswork out of making a website for your show. That's right, a website for your show. So listeners, starting summer 2020, finding our show notes will be so much easier. All thanks to Captivate. You're welcome, as always. If you're about to start podcasting or are getting burnt out from all the extra work of producing one, like building a website, consider a 7-day free trial, that's right, free, with Captivate by visiting thefil-am-woman.com. That's the Fil-Am, short for Filipino American woman.com. Or, check out our show notes in the meantime, which is in the details section of each episode. Once again, you can visit thefil-am-woman.com or visit the details section of this episode. Yeah, absolutely. I personally think that people are just more interested in quote unquote like ethnic stuff now. Like it's just a thing. Like you think about all the things that are like in Trader Joe's or like, sold at like farmers markets and it's like so cool and hip. And it's like, man, like we already did that in the Philippines. We already do that in like every other third world country. Like you think it's cool.
Appropriation.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever it's called. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, like Trader Joe's, they've been coming out with so many different like ethnic sauces or whatnot. And it's like, I've been using that for how long?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, at the same time, though, it's also important for like normalizing it as part of the like hyphenated American experience, Right. So it is also kind of nice to see those kinds of little tokens in Trader Joe's or wherever.
Yeah, like when the ube ice cream came out at Trader Joe's?
Yeah. That was like such a big hit for them.
I got my mom's like, I can't get my hands on it. I was like, I have some.
I know, I didn't even get to try it.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that whenever there's something like Filipino that pops up, like the whole Filipino community is behind it. It's like, oh, we're behind that.
Yeah, wherever it is too.
Yeah, love it. Got to represent. All right. Well, Jenn, thank you so much for taking the time to share a little bit more about you and your upbringing and why you identify as a Filipino American woman. We are now going to fast forward to today. And for people that are getting to know you for the first time, we'd love to hear a snapshot of your life, particularly what keeps you busy and most excited about life nowadays.
Oh, what keeps me busy? Where do I begin? I am a full-time working mom, so I work a 9-to-5 job. I work in the advertising industry, so I work with various clients from $1 million clients to very small clients that don't spend a lot. So my life right now in this moment is very busy. I work on a restaurant client, so we have been on calls nonstop of what are we going to do with the situation that's happening, and you've seen everything transitioning to delivery and all that stuff. So that's what I'm dealing with right now. So that's what I do on my day job. And then when I get home, I'm a mom. I'm a mom of 2 kids. I have an almost 3-year-old. son. His name is Paxton. And then my youngest girl, she is 8 months, and her name is Piper.
Aw.
And yeah, Paxton and Piper. So when I get home, I'm a mom. I go back to mom mode and get them all situated and whatnot. And then once they go to sleep, I do my Flipp Family stuff, which is my little small business that I created when I was on maternity leave last year. I've been always wanting to start my small business, and I've always dabbled in blogging. I started food blogging, sharing my recipes for a couple years, and it never really expanded or exploded into something I wanted it to be. So I would just do it here and there. And when I got pregnant with my son, I was like, okay, I'm going to do something when I'm on maternity leave. And that didn't happen. Being a first-time mom, there's so much things going on, and from my own self-care, other child, and you don't know a lot of things, and it was crazy. And I was like, okay, that's not gonna happen. So I went back to work full time, and then I got pregnant again with my second one. And then during that time, or even when I went back to work the first time, I'm like, I really don't want to be here. I really don't see myself. I mean, I knew there wasn't any room for growth for me. I've seen it happening. I have colleagues, moving up more up the corporate ladder, and I've been stagnant, and I'm still stagnant to this day, where I don't see myself working that 9 to 5, especially in a office environment, reporting to someone and working with clients that are very needy. And, now that I'm a mom, my mindset has changed, where I want to do more, something that's meaningful to me, that I want to do something for myself, but also make it a business that I can, do something from home. And so that's why I created Flipp Family. I mean, it's still small, and I'm thankful that I did not just dodge the bullet and quit when I came back from work, because given the situation now, we would not be surviving. So I'm kind of thankful that I'm still working my full time. And, I guess now just learning day by day, we never know what's going to happen. So I'm just thankful for that for now. But my true dream is to eventually have Flipp Family as a full-on business and educating families about their culture. And right now it's still small events. I've been holding small events here in the South Bay area, Orange County, promoting culture. But eventually I want to start. I have so many ideas, and hopefully it'll happen. No, it will happen. That's my new thing. I've been saying it will happen. I've always been, I hope it happens. So my mindset has shifted to it will happen, into a online membership kind of community for families. So, I mean, I can relate, especially with my group of friends. We all kind of had kids around the same time, and finding time for our kids is hard, especially when you're working Monday through Friday, and then you only have an hour or two with your kids before they go to sleep. And on the weekends, we're trying to keep them busy. So I figured if I can create space for families, especially here in the South Bay, there's a lot of Filipino communities here, yet I don't see them coming together specifically for families to have a space. And I want to create a space here where they can, learn about culture, may it be through food, learn cooking, music, art, dance. Like, I want to bring that space to them. And just like learning or just witnessing my son. So my husband, he worked frequently, and I see my son so engaged with the music, especially the kulintang and the drums. He's very into it. And just watching him learn fruit, he catches on very quickly. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So just observing him in different spaces and learning, he's already learning about culture, and he doesn't even know it yet. So I'm not forcing onto him, you have to do this, but just letting him, play with it, learn about it. It's awesome to see because I never got to do that growing up. So just letting him do his thing and he's actually interested, it's inspirational to me because he's already learning and he doesn't even know it yet.
Yeah. Right. It's like it's already normal, as opposed to in your story, you didn't really learn about your culture till you were in college. And so for your son to just already be immersed in it, it's like it's really awesome.
Yeah. Also, I really like that you encourage families to learn together, that it's more interactive than just for kids or for adults. Like you can bring both. And it seems for whatever reason, even if the culture is really prevalent in our households, like at least our generation's elders were not really, or were kind of reluctant to teach it to us for some reason. So I think that it's really cool that you can be more interactive and involve like the family rather than it just being like a kid's activity or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just want to create a space for them. I mean, kids can, play, do those mommy and me classes or play soccer. I mean, I'm all for it, but there's something about culture, even if it's not Filipino culture, it's just instilling learning about different cultures around us. I mean, all our communities now are so diverse and
right.
I want my kids to learn about diversity and that you don't have to just learn
what
Filipino
that is.
too. Yeah, exactly.
I love it. I mean, even just being exposed to it for one, and then being part of the conversation. Because, sometimes we think like for some of the people we interviewed on our show who were raised in like a, predominantly, let's say, white community, like that was like their normal. And then when they go to college and they're surrounded by Filipinos, they're like, whoa, okay, like I didn't realize that like I wasn't in a diverse setting, And so being able to start that young and be like, yeah, I mean, I know he's only 2 years old, but still, it's like to start it at a young age is pretty remarkable.
Yes, lucky him.
Yes. No, it's beautiful. And I was you essentially already answered my question. But I do find that a lot of the mothers we've interviewed on our show, they really make it a priority to expose their kids to culture because they wanted to give their kids maybe something they didn't have growing up. And it sounds to me that's something that you strive to do as well. Expose your kids to diversity. Are there any other reasons like why it's so important for you as a mother to teach culture? And the reason why I asked that question is because I find that a lot of mothers end up, when you do become a mother, that's when culture is especially important. And I'm very curious to know like what that mindset shift is because, Nani and I are not mothers yet. So it's fascinating to me, like to see Filipinas who become mothers, like all of a sudden, like preserving Filipino culture or promoting diversity is extremely important to them.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's because I never got that. And I don't even think my parents, they never really instilled it in me to learn Filipino culture. Like they just say, they never really asked me if I wanted to learn it or curious about it. Like they never really talked about their stories growing up, like until me and my sister would ask. And I want to create space for my kids to be able to come to me and ask me like, oh, what is this? Their curiosity. Like, I feel like growing up, my parents wouldn't explain things to me or, they'll give me like, like a very straightforward answer, not like giving me any type of reasoning or where it came from. And I felt a little shut out of learning about that, and I don't want my kids to be in that type of environment, and so I want to instill that to them now so they have space to talk to me and my husband. And I think instilling culture in them, they won't be afraid to talk about it. And I think that's where I, growing up or even like in college, was hesitant about, you're part of that Filipino group. People think of clubs, like the Filipino club is just a social thing. And it really isn't. Be able to not only learn about my culture, but also about myself and leadership skills and just, fundamental skills that help me become the person I am today. College, go to class and go home, study, but I was able to do extracurricular activities and shaped me into the leader I am today, especially that's fundamental for work, managing a team and whatnot. So
basically what I gathered is that there you can kill two birds with one stone, like learning about your culture, because it's not just like learning about the culture, but the professional skills or, professional skills you can gain through learning your culture.
Yes.
No, that's awesome. And I appreciate you elaborating on that. Nani, I wanted to see if you had any thoughts or questions.
Yeah, I mean, I just really love that what you said about wanting to create space for your kids to ask those questions and be curious. And I think that we've all shared that experience with our parents, kind of like when we not push their buttons, when we probe them for information about our traditions and our culture, we tend to get shut down with those like straightforward answers that, I think that Gen A, I've shared some of the conversations I've had with my family members with you. A lot of little examples like that when I've tried to pull stories out of them. So I definitely know what that's like. And I love that you're trying to change that environment for your kids before they even realize it.
Yeah, and I think it's also generation of parent learning from growing up, like we want to change that mindset. My parents did it this way, and I think I want to do it this way so they understand why they did certain things wrong or didn't learn it this way, rather than just cut off,
not just be like shamed.
Off.
Yeah,
and I don't know if it's just the cultural barrier from being, is that the right word? I don't know what the right word is.
No, that's right.
But they came from the Philippines, and then I was born here, so there's that barrier.
Yeah, well, I just want to add that the way that I see it is that my family, got me to a place where I get my bachelor's degree and I can look back. I'm in a place in my life where I have the luxury of looking back and seeing what I can do for myself moving forward. Like, I'm so glad. I mean, obviously there's a lot of things we can say about what we were lacking growing up, but I think that is the gift that our immigrant parents have given us, is that they gave us a safe place for us. I mean, as safe as it can be, but they gave us a place to grow and nourish and, become the professionals we are today, so that we could look back and be like, moving forward, this is what I want for myself, or this is how I can reparent myself, or this is how I can fulfill the needs that I was lacking growing up. And I could do it by giving back to the community. I could do it by exposing my child to our culture. And sometimes I feel like life is about giving ourselves the things that we felt like we were lacking growing up, like whether it's to us or people like us. And it sounds like that's what you're doing, Jenn, with like Flipp Family, just being able to create this environment for Filipino families to learn about culture and to promote diversity, because it wasn't necessarily discussed for you growing up.
Exactly. And I have so many ideas for Flipp Family, and it's just right now it's small right now, but I envision it to be something so much bigger. And just, going back to work this second time around, my mindset just shifted out of nowhere. And it's refreshing too, because I'm challenging myself more. And before I was scared to take that leap of faith, and I see my kids inspire me every day. They're so young, yet they have so much to say already, which encourages me. It just shows me that do it, and that's where the inspiration came from for Flipp. Here in the South Bay, there's going to be a Flipp Family brick and mortar where people will be able to come in and educate themselves and use that space for private events, promoting culture, parties and whatnot. So that's my long-term goal, coming.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Jenn, giving us a snapshot of your life today and the good work that you're doing for your, for yourself, for your son, your family, and, ultimately the community. So now we get into one of my favorite questions, my most favorite question of the show. The reason why this show exists is because we want to be able to publish a book where we collect life lessons and stories told by Filipino American women. So Jenn, your life lesson for today that you wanted to share with us is that you can do anything, even if you are a mom. tell us a little bit more about that life lesson and what aspect of your life like led you to that life lesson. And I mean, I'm guessing it's because you became a mom, but you can explain yourself.
Yeah. And, I've always been that go-getter, and I'm that type A personality that like I have to write everything out, list everything out. But being a mom is very powerful. And what's stopping you from doing your dreams? We have dreams too that we can accomplish. And being a mom should not stop us from rediscovering myself again. It's refreshing because I too have dreams, and no one's growing up. We've instilled like, fresh out of college, you get your, you just work your 9 to 5. And now that I became a mom, and I don't know why all these thoughts come to my mind, but I want more. I'm craving more. I want to do more. And who's stopping me? And for all the other moms out there, like, what's stopping you from getting to your dream? Because no one is but yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Just in case it was a little choppy in that part, I just wanted to paraphrase what you said. So essentially you're sharing that like we were raised to, go to school, get good grades, so you can get a good job, and then you can have a family, you can have a house, and you could be a mom, and that's it. And like, that's like the rest of your life. And you're here saying like, hey, we could be that and more.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Like, why not?
Yeah. Why not? Why not? Like, why not? And beautiful. And I think this show is really a great way to inspire mothers who maybe feel like they're in that position right now, which, I don't blame them. Like, I'm not a mom, but I can only imagine, like, I mean, for one, having a full-time job is a full-time job. And then you have 2 kids. So that's like 2 full-time jobs. And then you have your side business. So that's like another job. And so it's like, oh my gosh, like power woman here, like, power mom here. And, but if you do it right, if you
wake up very early every morning too.
Yeah. Yeah. And the truth is that like, it is possible to do it all. And I think it just depends on the season of your life. It's kind of like, hey, maybe for this first quarter, I'm really going to push for this side hustle, and then maybe try to find a way to have people help me so that, as I'm a mother, I can also have people help me run the Flipp family. Like, I think when people think like, oh my gosh, like Jenn does all these things, it's like, the reality is that there's a community behind it. Like you mentioned that you're building this community with Flipp Family, and so it's just realizing that you could do it all in community with other people.
Yes, for sure. And I mean, I've met so many people via Instagram, and I haven't even met them in person, but I feel like I've known them for so much longer, and we just talk. Crazy how like social media just brings people together. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I've always been engaged on social media. I mean, it's my job with advertising, digital marketing and whatnot. So what all the hip things are, like once you actually use these tools to help your business, it's crazy how much reaction and support you get, and people are willing to help.
Yeah, I like to believe that social media is a lot like money. It's like, it's not that money is evil. It's like how you use it that's evil. And I think that social media is very similar. It's like social media could be evil. Social media could be toxic. It could be bad for you. It could be abusive for you. But like, if you realize that like it doesn't control you and that you can control it, it can really bring out so many beautiful things. Like, just like how we've grown a community here at the Filipino American Women Project, and how, Nani, who manages our Instagram account, is, she's curating all of our stories, through our Insta stories, and really showing the world via social media, like how beautiful it is to be a Panay, to be a Filipina, and how we get to do that together, and how we get to uplift one another. And so, yeah, it's a gift to have found a corner in the online space, for such a community to empower one another and to help one another.
Yeah, especially during these hard times right now.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that has not ever been more apparent than now, when, we just went from like bashing social media and like saying it causes all this, hate and bullying and whatever else in the world, to now, I mean, at least where I am, we're all on lockdown in our own homes, and I'm kind of now looking at my like devices as like lifelines to know what's like going on, because I can't leave my house, And
I would
so it's interesting how that mindset shifts, and all of a sudden I look at it as like, oh my gosh, this is such a golden thing in my life right now. Thank God for social media.
Yep.
Yep. And I was just telling my husband, like, thank God we have our phones, but hopefully Wi-Fi does not go down.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
No, I know. Yeah. I think
Like,
it's
that's
just
what we're
been super
dependent.
helpful to be like able to see how everyone else around the world is reacting to it, as it's unfolding. So it's definitely, at least in my opinion right now, a blessing.
Yes.
Well, beautiful. Jenn, I want to thank you so much for being on our show today and for sharing your story, sharing what you do today and your very wonderful life lesson. For people that are interested in learning more about you and reaching out to you and connecting with you, especially in today's times, we could use community, as we just talked about. How can people find you on social media? How can they find you online?
You can find me at Flipp Family, 2P, so FLIPP Family on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, which I'm trying to dabble into, Pinterest. So I'm everywhere in the social media space, so you can find me there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again so much for your time. And it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you, especially in today's times. I can't emphasize that enough. Like, we all need community right now. And thank God for the internet. Thank God for social media. And like you said, thank God for Wi-Fi. Oh my goodness. Imagine what would happen. Like, we would really feel isolated. Yeah. Well, with that said, I am moving on, and to our listeners, we hope that you were inspired by today's story. And to Nani, thank you for co-hosting with me as always.
You're welcome as always. We will see you next time.
Yes, absolutely. And one more thing, listeners, if you did not catch that information on how to get a hold of Jenn, don't worry. I always provide it in the show notes. You're welcome. And if you don't know how to find those show notes, just reach out to us because we're just desperate for interaction and community right now, as you can hear. So with that said, thank you so much for listening, and we look forward to speaking with you in the next episode. Tune in next time.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.